Hello, everyone. My name is John Cornicello, and welcome you to my series of live interactive photo conversations. You can check out the schedule at cornicello.com/conversations for dates and times of upcoming shows. You'll also find links to previous shows there. My guests today are Weston Collective Scholarship recipients Carlos Rene Castro and Eric Gruss. The Weston Collective was founded in 2004 as a 501c3 organization that inspires and uplifts the next generation of photographers through youth programs, mentorships, and the Weston Scholarship. So my guests today are two winners of the scholarship, Carlos Rene Castro and Eric Gruss. So please welcome them. Hey, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate you all for having me.
Sure. I'm going to start. Carlos, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and how you got involved with the Westons.
Yeah, definitely. So I was born in Honduras and I migrated to the US when I was 5 years old with my parents. We first settled down in Salinas, and I pretty much lived my whole adult life in Salinas up to now when I moved to Los Angeles, where I'm currently at. But after high school, I had to make a decision whether to go to a four-year university or whether to go to community college. And I felt like I wasn't ready for the university level. So then that's why I transferred to MPC, Monterey Peninsula College. And that's where I first took my film class, and I fell in love with film photography and black and white photography specifically. And one day, a professor told us about this scholarship in the spring semester about, you got to create a portfolio with 10 matted images printed professionally, and you could potentially win a scholarship. And so that idea of, winning a scholarship, but also present my work at a museum was pretty awesome, especially as an 18-year-old. So um, I created my series based in my community of East Salinas, and I just photographed street photography, churches, people, parks, just places that often are overlooked in the community, and that we don't often stop to really appreciate the beauty. So I photographed that, and surprisingly, surprisingly, I won. Surprisingly, I won. I
So
won
you're working
second.
in black and white film?
Yeah, I work mostly in black and white film. Um, I took a big step into this project for the Weston, my first Weston Collective scholarship, because most of the people in the class were doing 35, and I just went straight to 120.
Mm-hmm.
And the square format works super well for me, especially for street photography. And so it was so cool to see my work in a museum gallery.
Yeah, I'm
And
sure.
yeah, I won second place, which is like I didn't expect it at all. But it was great. The whole experience was great. It was super smooth. It was exciting, and obviously, I'm still connected to the Westin to this day. I
Mm-hmm.
think about 3, 4 years later. So I'm excited
That's
to be
great.
here.
So Eric, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're muted at the moment. There you go.
Yeah, so I grew up in Philadelphia. When I was 19, I joined the Marine Corps. Did that for active duty for 8 years. And when my unit was on the way to Afghanistan, we got a bunch of letters from citizens saying thank you in light of 9/11, because this was in December 2001 that we were on our way over there. So one of those letters was from my now wife. We actually met that way, became pen pals. So when I got out of the Marines, I settled here in Monterey County with her, became a police officer. I was a cop for about 12 years, and I was injured. I was injured on duty. My Achilles tendon ruptured. So had a couple of surgeries. It didn't heal correctly, so they retired me. While I was convalescing from my injury, I enrolled in an online photo class just to prevent myself from going stir crazy. And that kind of sparked my interest in photography as a form of art. So when I finally got word that I was retired, I was like, well, I got to do something because I'm still young. So I enrolled in Monterey Peninsula College and was a photography and an English major. And it was at MPC where I was introduced to the Weston Scholarship. So the first black and white film class that I took, it wasn't a requirement. It was the second one with with Kevin Bransfield as my professor. For our final, you had to enter a portfolio in the Weston scholarship. And I was nervous because I'd never done anything like that before. And sort of like Carlos, I was starting to shoot with a medium format. I was shooting with a Mamiya 645E at that point. So what I did was I got a single vase of flowers. And I decided to make my entire portfolio of nothing but that vase, shooting it in, from different perspectives. And I ended up entering it. And I mean, I was as shocked as anybody, I guess, when I won. I was surrounded by such talented photographers, including Carlos. You just kind of throw your name in the hat and que sera, sera. I got an email one day saying I was selected for a scholarship, but the way it's run is you don't know which award you're going to get until you get there.
Right.
And
Wow.
so we ended up going to the Monterey Museum of Art, and they're calling off everybody's names. I was like, oh man, are they going to call my name? And I ended up getting the John Crossman Award, which I guess is the top award of the scholarship. So I was pretty proud, but I was really humbled because, like I said, anybody that entered that year could have easily won the same award.
Yeah.
Really lucky. So, and right now I do black and white film, I do alternative processes, and I do digital imagery. And right now I'm working on a night photo project that started out as me wanting to photograph mom and pop stores at night, but I think it's expanding into shooting other types of photos too, not just exclusively mom and pop stores, because I found that there's a bunch of cool stuff at night to photograph. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Are you still doing that with film, or is that digital?
That's with digital.
Are you able to share some work with us?
Yeah, let's see here. Well, I don't have a website, but I have an Instagram. And
Yeah, that's good. And then we'll go to Carlos.
Yeah. And I can.
Let's see. Can you show on your screen here? I can go to there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on it right now.
Okay, so hit share screen at the bottom.
Sure. Okay, let's see here. Share screen.
Great.
So
but anyway, let's go through. So this is like a gas station, and you said you're shooting digital on these. And are these all in your neighborhood?
yeah, they're in the area. These are all within the surrounding towns. Like this one's off of Highway 68 on between Salinas and Monterey. And one of the things that drew me to this little gas station was the fact that it had the gas pumps that still have the leaded, unleaded stickers on them. And I'm 44, I'm going to be 45. And I remember seeing this and having to tell the gas station attendant when I was a kid, or my father doing it anyway, what kind of gas you wanted. So it's sort of a relic, and a relic, a look into the past. And I wanted to memorialize it. So when I saw it, I've been wanting to photograph it for a while. I was like, well, I better do it before they tear those things out or change it. And that's one of the things that inspired me to start this project, was the fact that so many things are, being demolished or just sort of upgraded. A couple of years I flew home for a friend's wedding. I was driving around the neighborhood I grew up in, and I was checking out where all the old delis and barbershops and candy stores used to be as a kid, and they've all changed now. They're either boarded up, or there's some kind of a corporate chain store now. And I think these mom and pop stores add a lot of character to the neighborhood, memories. They're places where the proprietors knew everybody in the neighborhood, where it was a gathering spot. Some of them had video games, so you'd go there, you'd buy some candy and play the arcade games for a little while, and all those things are gone. So I thought it was sad that I didn't have any pictures of them. So I decided when I got back here, I was going to find some of the places I thought were cool, like mom and pop places, and
Yeah,
memorialize them before they change.
sure. And it looks like you have some landscapes in there too.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
jump over to or the flowers.
Yeah, so that's I think in my bio I told you I do a little bit of everything. I'm trying not to pigeonhole myself into one
Mhm.
specific genre of photography, and so I'm always experimenting. And this is just one that I took of a fuchsia from my backyard. I was experimenting a little bit with high key photography,
Hmm.
and then
Are you still in school?
I'm currently enrolled in San Jose State, but I think I'm going to be transferring somewhere else. It's
Okay.
just not a good fit for me, I don't think.
Hmm.
But
When you say you're doing alternative processes, which ones are you working in?
I do have Van Dyke prints and I do cyanotypes mostly. And I've touched a little bit on alcohol transfers, but mostly cyanotypes and Van Dykes.
Nice.
Yeah, so these are some of the landscapes.
Yeah, and if people want to visit the Instagram, it's in the chat. Nice.
And it was really fun doing this. Like some of these landscapes I just took a couple of weeks ago when everything was still really green. The hills are starting to turn brown here. So I was lucky I was able to get out when I did. But I don't necessarily have anything in mind when I go out to take pictures. I generally
Mhm.
I'm going to go out and take pictures. And when I see something, I know I got to take a picture of it. So I don't say I'm going to go out and take a picture of a tree or whatever the case is. You know,
Yeah.
some days I'll
Cool.
go out and I'll drive around for an hour and I don't find anything. And then there's some times where I'll drive up the block and I see something really cool.
Hmm.
And I guess the process of finding out who I am as a photographer and what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, that's a lot of fun. So that's,
Yeah. Or do you have any influences? Who are some of
yeah,
your favorites?
yeah, I really like Dave Giordano and his night photography.
Hmm.
He has a book that I was introduced to at school a couple of semesters ago. It's called A Detroit Nocturne. And I guess that's where he grew up. So he went around Detroit taking a bunch of really cool night images. And that was one of the things that first got me into night photography.
Cool.
I like him. And then I like Alexei Tidorenko. And
Hmm.
he still does black and white film photography. And I guess his story is he was taking pictures of Russia around the time of the fall of the Soviet Union in the late 80s and the 90s and during that whole transition period. And I've heard stories about him having to hide his camera and hide his film because if the authorities found it, they'd be destroyed.
Hmm.
So, aside from the images themselves being really cool, um, just his whole backstory, I think it's interesting, and I think it was important that he wanted to document some of the things that were going on.
Hmm.
That's one of the reasons I like his work so much.
Yeah. On your Instagram, do you have any of the vase photos that you had in your portfolio?
You know what? I don't, but if you go to the Weston Collective, I'm sharing it on my screen right now. This is the one that they decided to share for the gallery show. And this was, I believe, the last picture that I took.
What is the picture of?
It's a dead flower.
Okay, no,
Yeah.
we're not seeing it.
Oh, I'm sorry. It says I'm
So,
screen sharing.
stop your share and come back and share whatever window or
Okay.
application that's in. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Oops. Screen share. There we go.
Okay, great.
And like I said, I believe this is the very last image that I took. So I got the vase of flowers and I had it for about 2 or 3 weeks, and I just photographed it over that 2 or 3 weeks from different
Mhm.
perspectives and in front of certain objects, behind certain objects, just trying to create really cool images.
Yeah, I have one lily here that I've been photographing for almost 2 years. It's dried out about a year ago, but it still keeps showing up in my photos. Cool. I'm going to go over to Carlos for a little
Yeah.
while here. So I'm going to stop your share. And so Carlos, do you have some website or anything you want to share with us?
Yeah, definitely. I'll share my website right now. Give me a second. All right, let's see. I'm gonna share my screen.
So Eric, while he's doing that, over in the chat, Paul was asking for Dave and Alex's names. Did he spell them right there?
No, I'll
Or if you can put them in the chat, that'll be
yeah, I
great.
can do that, of course.
Are you guys able to see the website?
Yep.
Beautiful. So yeah, this is actually one of the photographs I submitted for the Weston Scholarship. Like I mentioned, much of my work is street photography. I grew up in East Salinas, which is a minority community here in Salinas. And I don't know if I'm going too fast. I'm sorry. I should backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
Like I mentioned, Salinas is a minority community. A lot of immigrants from Mexico come to Salinas, and the biggest industry here is agriculture, actually. So there's a lot of agriculture, a lot of people working in the fields. It's funny because I work at Vons, which is a supermarket here in Southern California, and I work in the produce department. And man, it's beautiful to see Salinas everywhere. A lot of fruits come from Salinas, strawberries, blueberries, celery, broccoli, lettuce, cabbage, you name it, comes from Salinas. So it's beautiful to see how, my hardworking community is out there, busting their ass in the fields in the hot sun, just like this gentleman is, to provide for their families, and in order for their kids to do what they couldn't do back home, and that is to achieve a higher education. And thankfully, that's
Nice.
what my parents have done for me, for myself. They migrated to this country, not for themselves, not for their opportunities, but with my growth in mind, and to achieve
You
a
said
higher.
you were 5 when you came here?
Yeah, I was 5 years old.
Nice. Paul, if you're not seeing the full screen, up at the top, it says view options. Drop that down and try one of the other options in there. Fit to window should work, or 100%. You
Crazy
see
thing
that?
about this shot is that so I don't know if they still do it at the moment, but back then every Friday a radio station would go out to the fields and give food to the field workers during their lunchtime. And so it's funny because I was in the van with everybody who participated in that event. We park, I get off the car, and right away I just see this gentleman posing. I'm like, man, I need to get this shot. I need to get this shot. I'm like stumbling with the camera. I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. I need a meter. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? And so then I metered it, and it's one of those shots where it's like, did I meter right? Did I focus right? And so like it's one of those shots where like you got to go back to the dark room and just hope that you get it right.
Yeah.
Right? Because if not, then
So what medium format camera are you using?
it's I don't have it right now, but it's a Rolleicord
Yeah, roll it. Sure.
f2.8.
Nice. Yeah, you can, scroll through some more photos. These are great.
Appreciate that. For me, the camera is a tool.
Mm-hmm.
I see it as a tool in order to tell a story. I feel like photography and photographing comes from your thoughts, your experiences, and your feelings. Like, how do you feel in that moment? When
Mhm.
you're in that moment, what does that scenery remind you of? And so for me, um, I don't like to really dictate the shot. I'm the type of person that I like to go with the flow, and I like things to be. And so for me, like I said, the camera's an instrument to record that time,
Mhm.
that specific time.
When you're doing photos of people, do you interact with them?
No, definitely
Okay.
not.
Mhm.
I don't like for example, this is a photograph that won second place in the Weston Scholarship, and thank you for bringing up that question because it's perfect for this shot. I it's crazy how things are meant to be because this was after a rainy day in town, and so I went to photograph with my camera, and I saw this great scenery. I saw this great scenery, and I knew I wanted a shot there, but I didn't know when or how I was going to take that shot. So I wasn't confident and brave to take, a random photograph of a girl. So then I leave the area and I go to like 2, 3 blocks away from this location to a supermarket and try to photograph something. I was not feeling it. I wasn't feeling it. I was like, I gotta go back to the location. I go back to this specific location. And so I did. And I'm like, man, you need to like man up and just go there and take the shot and just pretend like you don't know what you're doing. And that's the beautiful thing about a medium format, about a twin race reflex, is that people really don't really know what you're up to. It's like you're looking down, like what exactly are you doing, except for looking up in the viewfinder, which I find is less tension between my
Uh-huh.
subject and I. And so again, it's one of those shots where it's you hope that you meet it right,
Yeah. And
and
that also gives you a different perspective on your, a much lower perspective. You're down to her level by
right.
working with the roller cord.
Yeah, it's one of the shots like it's like you just hope that like everything goes right, and it didn't.
Hmm.
That's the thing about too, like about photography. It's like it's magical. It's fast. It's you. Everything just happens so quickly that you can't really I guess comprehend what just happened till you just slow down and
Hmm.
see the negatives, and you're like, wow, like it happened so
Yeah.
quick.
Are you doing your own darkroom work?
No. I mean, I did when I was back in community college, but obviously,
Sure.
I don't have any access to a community darkroom at the moment.
And it looks like you have some lights behind you. Are you doing studio work too?
Yeah. I'm currently. Shout out to my community college here at Mendo Community College. We have some strobe lights that they let us borrow, so
Oh, great.
I use. I'm then transitioning more into studio work, which has been fun.
Hmm.
And like I said, um, well, I don't think I mentioned this, but Selena's eventually at one point had one of the highest youth murder rates, homicide rates in California.
Wow.
And so my community unfortunately has a bad reputation for youth in gang violence. And so it was important for me in this Weston portfolio to show that the youth are are not murderers, they're not
Hmm.
gangbangers, they're not out there in the streets, just wasting their times. They're kids who have hopes and dreams to fulfill their parents, dreams of them getting a college education. And so that's why I photographed the youth, because I felt like it was important for people to know that these kids have dreams to become lawyers, doctors, and they have the potential to do so too.
Hmm.
Potential to do so. And so,
Great. Great. Yeah, you
um,
can keep going with the photos.
yeah,
Nice.
my process with photography is I think for me the most important, like the thing I love more photography is a process. Is
Hmm.
at a store. I like to say the candy store. Get yourself a roll of film. You pop it up. I park in a location, I walk around for a good 30 minutes to an hour, I photograph, and that's it. It's pretty simple. I honestly, I just go with my I go with my camera, with an ID,
Hmm.
some cash, and that's it.
Now, I
Okay.
noticed a lot of these are reversed.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, I always have a bad habit of not flipping the image.
Okay. No, I didn't know if that was on purpose or.
This I think this shot I did tell the gentleman to pose.
Hmm.
Um, but like I said, the process for me is the most intriguing part of photography.
Sure. Yes. I often ask people if photography is a product or a process. I know for myself, it's the process of working with the people. If we get a photo out of it, that's great, but it's the whole experience that I enjoy.
Yeah, for sure. And also to the storytelling is important too. It's like what is the message you're trying to get to?
Hmm.
It's obviously you are the author and you hold the narrative. So what's important for you to share? And for me, it was to share that my community, regardless of its of its stereotypes, you
Yeah, for
know,
the reputation.
reputation, it still holds value, memories, and potential for people.
Hmm.
And so it's crazy to think that I took this when I was like, I think 19 years old.
Hmm.
I think I
How
was
old are you now?
I'm 23. I'm 23. So to say this was like 3 years ago is pretty wild. And I'm like, wow, where did time go?
Hmm.
And so I have these images framed up too, right here. They're all framed up
Yeah,
right there too.
that's nice to see people have their work hanging.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, unfortunately with COVID here in LA has been difficult because I like to show work in galleries. I like the gallery space. I like the feel of it, and I like the ambience. And so, unfortunately, for me to not show work at in galleries is been a little
Hmm.
difficult.
Do you hope or aspire to get your own darkroom set up again, or?
Um, well, it's funny you bring that up because I'm going through an interesting transition in my life at this moment, where it's like photography has been great. Photography, I've been doing this for 5 years, but I'm thinking about going into a change in my career.
Hmm.
I really don't see myself. I mean, for me, I guess the end goal was photography, artist, gallery artist, teaching artist. Like that was the end goal. And it has my road here to LA hasn't been easy. I feel like everything in LA for me has been like um, 2 step forward, 4 step back.
Sure.
It's like I get somewhere and then something happens. Like I was after MPC, I went to California Institute of Arts in Valencia, California, and I majored in photography. And I don't want to say I didn't fit in the Cal Arts environment, but it wasn't what I expected it to be, especially to pay 60,000 for tuition and not have access to my professors and have the resources. It wasn't for me, so I decided to drop out of
Yeah,
Cal
I
Arts.
understand that totally.
And so um, yeah, like I said, I'm going into transition life, interesting transition in my life, and like I said, I'm 23. So I have, I guess this is the right time to experiment with other things.
Hmm.
And for me, my next uh, decision is to go into kinesiology. Before photography came into my life, I was interested in being a sports doctor. We're going to sports
Hmm.
medicine, working for a professional sports team. And so yeah, I'm doing a big huge leap of leaving LA and going back home to Salinas and
Hmm.
start from zero again.
Wow. Well, I
Start from
wish you
zero
luck
again.
with that.
Yeah, and just do something different with my life because I feel like the work is great. I feel like I do have potential in this industry, but I just don't find it fulfilling as it was
Hmm.
before,
Yeah,
which is
totally
tough to say
understand.
because, like I said, I guess people attach a certain um, identity to you.
Hmm.
People saw me as the artist, the photographer, the black and white photographer, the street photographer, and it's like I guess you attach yourself to that name, and like there's no other ways to like see yourself in a different field. So I guess at this point in my life, I'm detaching from of who people see me and portray me and how I see myself.
Hmm.
Detach from that and just be Carlos Rene Castro with no titles, with no um, you know, yeah, no titles. It's the perfect way to say.
Yep.
And like this work that I showed you is from San Fernando Valley, here in Los Angeles County. It's a valley mostly with minority people. And so for this series, like I said, it's mostly street. I document and I just go shoot. And this whole process, this whole project was about my relationship to street photography and how special it is to me when I'm in the streets photographing it. It's I feel like I'm untouchable. Like there's nothing that can hold me back.
Hmm.
And in my relationship to the streets and the camera, all works together to make the image. And so we all work together um, simultaneously to create the story. And when it's just me and the
Yeah.
camera, nothing else that can stop me. It's just me, my imagination, and my thoughts and feelings who are there, focused to tell a story.
Nice. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this series.
Yeah, it's this was a pretty cool series. It's isn't is it's clean, it's straightforward, um, and that's how I like my work to be. I like my work to be simple. That's why when people get into cameras and gears and this and that and gadgets, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I could, with technicality, it's funny because when I went to CalArts, when I went to CalArts, they're mostly conceptual. And when I was there, I was kind of upset that it's mostly conceptual work rather than technical. And so then after I left CalArts, I'm like, well, wait a minute, conceptual is pretty important too. And so I guess I'm more into the conceptual type of
That's
photography.
great.
I'm like, yeah, I mean, I could take a great shot, but I can't really tell you I need to do this to the image and, burn this and burn that. I mean, I
Hmm.
could tell you, I could tell you an image and just talk out of my ass and just make it seem like it's like a magical piece.
So this one's not square.
No, this is 35.
Okay.
I went with the 35 on this project.
Yeah, it's really interesting framing and getting yourself in there and the shadow of yourself in the silhouette. I really, there's so much depth to this photo.
Appreciate that. Yeah, it's crazy to see your work in a different perspective because I haven't done a lecture in a while. So
Hmm.
I'm like, man, these are pretty cool images. Like, wow, not bad, Carlos, not bad. I'm not retired yet, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. And
Yeah, I mean, you can go in another direction, but still keep doing the photos.
right, for sure. And yeah, that's my work.
Cool. Thank you. Like
Thank
to open up for people who want to ask questions or make some comments.
I have a question for both Carlos and Eric. I'll start with Carlos.
you. Yeah,
Um, as I've spent a lot of time myself in Pacoima, and just driving down the streets, I wouldn't necessarily have stopped and photographed those food trucks like you did. So I'm wondering how you went from feeling about the world or how it affected you to just go from driving down the street in Pacoima to stopping and walking and photographing. Did it change your view of the world?
for sure. Is because, like I said, when I photographed my home of Selena, I was comfortable in that environment to photograph my people, and I knew Selena's, I knew the story. But when you go into a new community of such as Pacoima, in a bigger county, it's different. You got to move a little different and just be more aware of what you're photographing and who you're photographing, because at any given moment somebody can be, why are you here? You're not part of this community. Are you coming as an outsider just to get, fame out of yourself? So yeah, it definitely changed my way of how I approach people and just be respectful of people's spaces and their environment, because I can just be an outsider and just say, this is Pacoima, and I don't know nothing about this town, and this is what I think about it. I have to be true to the story and true to the people and to the community to tell an efficient story.
Thank you. And Eric, so you spent 20 years in, shall we say, a high adrenaline environment. You went from 8 years as a Marine, 12 years as a cop, and now you've shifted over to photographing flowers in a vase. How do you go from, how do you go from, because I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie myself, how do you go from the environment you were in to being a little bit more isolated and quieter in doing a lot of the things that you're doing now?
Yeah, I guess it was tough. It's not something that I actually sought out per se. Like I said, it started out for me as just something to prevent me from going crazy while my foot was in this cast. You don't find a lot of people like me, I guess, in this world, and to sort of hit on something that Carlos had said earlier, he doesn't want to be known as, oh, he's Carlos the street photographer. He wants to find more of an identity. And I guess I was in a similar situation, by the time I was retired, I was a Marine and I was a cop. And along with those titles, you have certain stereotypes attached to them. And, when you identify as one of those for a long time, maybe you subconsciously think that's who I am, So after doing that for such a long, my entire adult life, finding out that I was a good artist, well, other people tell me I'm good. I don't necessarily believe that, but I guess it was trying to think of the right way to articulate this. I guess it was difficult and it was slow, and I'm just finally feeling more comfortable referring to myself as an artist now. Yeah, I mean, it was a healing process for me. When I was retired, I was 40 and I wasn't sure what I was going to do exactly. I knew I needed to do something else. So aside from keep me from going stir crazy, it sort of helped ease my the mental burden that I was going through, as far as saying, well, what am I going to do now? You go from being a cop or a Marine to being a nobody, or at least in your own head. And it's tough to take on mentally. So I think getting out and taking photographs, good photographs, bad photographs, and kind of learning more about the arts in general was really good. But I think what was even more helpful than that was going to community college and meeting people like Carlos and some of my other classmates, and
Right.
being thrust into this environment that you're not used to. It wasn't always easy, but I think that I think our greatest accomplishments are never easy.
Yeah.
If something is easy to accomplish, is it really that great an accomplishment? I don't think so, And so I've been doing photography at a certain level now for maybe like 3 or 4 years. And I'm finally starting to feel a little bit comfortable with my work, but it hasn't been easy, and yeah, I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, actually, can I piggyback on that, Eric?
Yeah.
It's funny because you said that, for you, your work to get where you're at wasn't easy, but I mean, I don't know, it's crazy. And I like how you mentioned that too, about like, if you didn't work for it, is it really worth it? Because for me, photography has always came easy. Like photography was easy for me. Like right away, my first raw film was like, my professor was like, wow, this is really good. Like you got this. And now, like for you, when you transition from being a cop to a photographer, it's like kind of like my step too. It's like I'm coming from a photographer back to being a sports doctor. It's like going back to zero. So it's crazy to see like our similarities and differences, but yet, photography is still a passion of ours. So I just wanted to piggyback on that.
Yeah, one of the most, I think one of the most valuable lessons or classes I took as a photographer was Greg's portrait class. Greg Metler is one of the professors over at MPC. And the reason that was so difficult for me was that one of our assignments was to do a self-portrait. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. I don't like taking pictures of myself, and it really made me dive deep and think about, well, what's important to me? Who am I? And, the photos I took for that assignment really made me think a lot. And I ended up doing well in the assignment, but it also helped me grow. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you're not really going to grow. So I think that's another lesson I took from my photography education. And the professors that I had at MPC, I didn't know it at the time, but they really helped out with that transition from me being retired to sort of starting this new stage in my life. I owe, Greg and Kevin and Martha. I mean, they've all been a tremendously big influence on my growth as an artist, as a photographer, and without knowing it at the time, like I said, they helped me make that transition. So
Was
I
that
owe,
Martha? Was that Martha Casanavy?
yeah,
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, they helped me with my transition without either of us knowing it at the time. It's one of those things you look back and it's like, wow, the right people came to my life at the right time to help me make this transition. So I'm grateful to them forever.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, photography has been transformative for a lot of people.
Can I ask?
Yes.
But Carlos and Eric, you've got this idea of a photographer, of an artist, and you sort of struggle with your relationship to that. And I sympathize. I've got my own issues. But how has that image of this thing of being an artist and being a photographer, has that gotten in the way? Has it helped you understand what you're doing or where you're going?
Yeah, honestly, it's really helped me understand myself, and that my ideas are worthy to share, and that I have a great imagination. So I feel like photography and image making can carry on into my new field, because it's like I feel like art is everywhere. Anything could be photographable, and anything could be captured in the moment. And so, yeah, I think photography has been life changing, because I see things differently. I see that people's stories are worth to share and to photograph, and for people to hear. And so I'm excited to hear people's stories, in the medical field. Not necessarily, maybe, I mean, who knows? Maybe I could document, some of these stories with these athletes. But no, it's photography has been life changing, and I'm forever grateful for the people that I've met, and I'm forever grateful to be here. Without photography, I guess I would have not met Eric or be here with you guys. So.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Well, you've both talked about how this idea of being a photographer, being an artist is a struggle. And as someone who later in life is coming to both of these and trying to understand what the hell am I playing at, that really resonates with me. And so I'm wondering, has this idea that you have of being an artist in that struggle, has that helped you find the photographs that you want to make, or has that gotten in the way of the photographs that you want to make?
I don't know that I guess it's gotten in the way, maybe to a small extent, because you might tell somebody you're a photographer and then they say, oh, well, what kind of photography? It's like, well, should I limit myself to one kind of photography? I like doing everything. I like experimenting. So there's some nights where I sit down and I struggle, like, should I just focus on this direction and become really good at one thing, or should I become a jack of all trades? So I guess from that perspective, it's become a bit of a struggle, but I'm also a very spontaneous person. And I could be laser focused on a project, and then I see something out of the corner of my eye, and then I get totally distracted. Next thing you know, I'm starting on another project, totally unrelated in style or meaning to the one that I was working on. So I don't know. I just try to do my own thing, and if I find something that I think I'm good at, I pursue it. And if I determine I'm not so good at that, I don't do it as much. You know, for a long time, I was hell bent on becoming a better portrait photographer, but it's just something that me personally, I don't think I'm very talented at. Some people have a knack for catching people at the right moment. Others have a knack for, you know, getting the scene right and posing people and talking to them. And that's just not me. I prefer the still world. So
I really sympathize with that. I like trees. Trees, I can photograph trees all day.
right.
Mr. Cornicello over here, I've seen him with people and he's just relaxed and calm, and they relax and you get these great moments. And I'm like, I'm so jealous. It's being able to.
Yeah, but
see
I can't
somebody-
photograph a tree.
but so I understand, but once we're through with this, one of my goals is okay, get a camera, get some people, figure out how to do that, at least a little bit as well as certain others here can.
I have an answer. When people ask me what kind of photographer I am, I'll say legitimate. And if they say, what do you photograph? And I'll tell them nouns. Or if I've got a tripod, verbs. I was conditioned early, you know, stuff happened to me that at times I wished I had the camera with me, and at other times I had it with me. So I was just conditioned constantly to carry it wherever I go. I was punished and rewarded.
Yeah. And now everybody's got a camera with them nearly 24 hours a day, 7 days a
Yeah.
week. So
So Eric,
I
when
have a
you said
camera.
you're trying portraits, was that studio work or candids or a little bit of
yeah,
everything?
all of the above. I mean,
Okay.
I got a little lighting set up here in my house, and every once in a while I'll make my wife model for me, which she absolutely hates doing. And you know, I try and get things to work. I'm not always successful, and that's
Yeah,
I've
Yeah.
come to accept that.
it's
Yeah,
It's all an
think I could do
experience.
I don't think I could do what Carlos does with his street photography. He's got a knack for it, and he's very good at what he does. And
Thank you so much.
you know, I've attempted it before. It's just I don't know.
Yeah, it's
He's got
it's
the-
hard.
he's got the
I
magic when it comes to that. I don't.
Eric,
Yeah.
so you said you like portraits. You like doing portraits, but you really weren't that comfortable with portraits. Is that what essentially you said?
I'd like to get better at them. I don't know if it's my favorite thing to do, but I would still like to get better at them. Yeah.
Let me ask you something. What do you think a portrait is?
Mhm. It's to me, a portrait is catching an image of a person or people, and
Why that? Why people?
well, I don't know. Can you take a portrait of a tree?
think so.
You think so?
Well,
Maybe. Yeah.
you can. Where do you live?
I live in Monterey County, California.
Is there a zoo nearby?
There's an animal place nearby. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Close enough. Yeah.
So when you say an animal place, you're talking about wild animals or
Yeah.
like a petting zoo?
No, it's not a petting zoo. They got lions and some bigger
Oh.
animals, but it's not a full-fledged, you know, like the San Francisco Zoo.
No. That's fine. So you could go to this animal place
Mhm.
and with your camera and take pictures of wild animals, portraits of lions, tigers, elephants, zebras, rhinoceros, and that's a portrait.
I guess,
What
but
if-
I'd like to become more comfortable taking portraits of people, you know, and because you can actually give direction. I can't give direction to a gorilla. And I think one of my
That's-
problems is becoming comfortable enough to talk to people and get them to pose. And
Well, you see, that's what's going to make you a better photographer. Not telling people how to pose, but to make pictures of things that you cannot direct. And that's what makes you a better photographer.
I see.
Trust me on this one. Having worked with many professional models, you'd prefer gorillas.
Well, that's where my self-portraits come in.
Yeah. Stephen Shore, were you going to ask something?
Oh, when we're talking about carrying a camera, I have a camera that I refer to as my toy camera. And if I'm not taking what I consider a real camera, I just throw it on my hip. And it's not a toy. It's a Panasonic Lumix mirrorless point and shoot. And it's a reasonable camera, 20 megapixels. But the images don't compare to what I do for my R5 or my 5D. But it gives me the ability to have a lot more flexibility than my phone would give me and capture a lot more things. And in fact, I just found some software that made the images coming out of it far better than they ever were in the past. So I may carry it with me even more. But having the ability to shoot something whenever I want to has become very important to me.
Stephen, I have to ask you a question.
Sure.
Back in the analog days,
Mm-hmm.
I never heard anybody say I take better pictures with Kodachrome 25 than I can with Tri-X or high-speed Ektachrome.
Well, better for what I'm trying to achieve.
What are you trying to achieve?
Depends on what I'm taking pictures of.
So then the question becomes this: if you want to take your Lumix and put it on your hip, aren't you prepared to take anything that comes across your way?
Of course. And that's why I carry the Lumix instead of just my phone. You know, it has a full frame equivalent lens of 25 to 400 millimeters. It does a pretty good job at low ISO. It breaks down entirely at high ISO. Of course, it thinks high ISO is 1600.
So essentially, you've got a lens on that Lumix that will cover the entire range of light.
What I normally shoot. Yeah.
No, from 25 to 400.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but let's get back to Eric and Carlos's photos.
I must say, in regards to Carlos's street work and the photos he showed, I find it very, it reminds me of the famous Depression era photographs, but obviously much more modern, but it gives me that kind of feel. And with Carlos, and then Eric's night scene photos like gas stations and so forth remind me of the 60s photos. Photographers I can't remember names of right at the moment. I just love that kind of work. It's really
George Tice, Eggleston.
Eggleston is who I was thinking of. Yeah.
And it's also it's motivating to have friends like Carlos to bounce ideas off of and share photos with and get feedback from. I haven't seen him in it's probably been about a year and a half or so, maybe 2 years, something like that. But
I would say 2.
Yeah, but we still text each other photos and share pictures on Instagram with each other and give feedback. So it's always nice.
I mean, yeah, to go back to to piggyback on the Weston scholarship, the whole process, I mean, like the most fun process was working, like I said, like working with the students, working with Eric and my classmates. I remember, I think the last day on the deadline, we stayed up till, I think 2 a.m.
It was later, I think like 2, I think a few people ended up leaving at about 4 or 5 in the morning. So,
yeah.
Yeah, but that was what was so much fun about entering the Westin was like Carlos said, the evening prior to the deadline, we had the dark room at MPC. It was full of everybody, working on last minute images, doing dodging and burning, and spotting photos. And next thing you know, there's 10 pizzas in the classroom. There's a ton of Chinese food, and I mean, we pulled an all-nighter.
Yes,
But, getting to share your work with each other and get ideas and things like that. That was a lot of fun. And
is anybody shooting digitally?
Yeah, I shoot digitally and film. Yeah, but not for the Westin, I don't think. At least not at the time.
Is anybody shooting digitally for the Weston?
No, I think they changed the guidelines after COVID, because obviously people cannot send their portfolio in person. So I think they made an exception, I think this past year, to have digital and film.
Yeah, I think the last 2 years they made an exception, like Carlos said, and also because of COVID, a lot of labs, the school's photo labs, were shut down, so students didn't
Right.
have the access to the dark room. So I think this year and last year's, they've been accepting black and white digital. But don't quote me. I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, I'll send people to the Weston Collective site. I'll put the link to that in the description when we put the recording online.
And they have a community darkroom, by the way. I don't know if it's open right now because of COVID. But if you're in the area and you want to get into film photography, you can rent out spaces at
Is
at
this
the
in
Weston
Carmel?
Collective. No, it's actually it's an elementary school in Seaside, California,
Oh,
which
okay.
is only a short ride from Carmel. It's outside the old Fort Ord
Mm-hmm.
base. But Zach's usually there, and it's an awesome darkroom.
That's
Nice.
I
great.
think it's the only community darkroom around here. So
If it helps, I've always said for a long time, I reserve the right to photograph anything I find fun and interesting. I was lucky enough along the way to have some things that were fun and interesting that I was able to turn into revenue producing that were in my niches. But I still say, but people said, wanting you to specialize, anything that you find fun and interesting, that's what you specialize in.
Definitely, I agree.
yeah,
Now you should ask him what he specializes in. What does he find that's fun and interesting?
Who are you speaking to?
I
Oh my gosh, and I don't want to take over from Eric and Carlos at this point, but of course it was bodybuilders. I always liked fashion for some reason, so I always loved women's fashion, and I always liked the porno chic of Helmut Newton. Yeah, and then I love planes, trains, and automobiles. Things I don't find interesting is flowers and vases. I love the work that people do, but it's not for me. Food photography, I think, is fascinating. I don't want to do it, and other things.
Cool. Well, Carlos and Eric, any last minute things you want to say to folks?
go ahead, Carlos.
Yeah, thank you guys for this opportunity. It was great. It was good to get off the weight off my shoulders about, like I said, this transition in life, and it was good to hear positive feedback. And thank you guys
Yeah,
for this
we
opportunity.
wish you luck with the changes.
Yeah, thank you. And I haven't seen Eric in a while, so now I'm gonna be back home mid May. So hopefully to see you soon, reunite and catch up, and hopefully take some great photos. So thank you guys for this conversation. It was great. I haven't done this in a while, so I think I did pretty good.
You did great.
Appreciate it.
Eric?
Yeah, so I guess in closing, I would have to say, I know it's really cliche, but it's never too late to pursue something that you've wanted to pursue. Like I said, I've gotten into photography in my 40s, and I think I'm doing well. And you have to have an open mind and thick skin. You gotta, if you don't take a bunch of bad photos, you're never going to be able to learn what you're doing incorrectly. So have a thick enough skin to take constructive criticism, and be open-minded enough to learn from people who are both older and younger than you. Like I said, I look at Carlos's work, and I feel inspired because I know the art of photography is going to be continuing for generations and generations. And then, I guess that's it.
want to interject one thing.
Yeah.
I want to change something, Carlos. I mean, Eric.
Mhm.
There is nothing in art, and photography is art, but there's nothing in art that is incorrect. You make your mistakes, and some of the finest mistakes, the biggest mistakes that were ever made, turned out to be successes. So
Happy accidents.
that's exactly right.
Mhm.
Just
Yeah.
keep, just
Yep.
keep doing what you think is the right way of doing it and experiment. Both of you. And Carlos, if you think that you're going to change your career, I will tell you up front that
Yes.
you will always be making pictures.
Oh yeah.
Always.
Hmm.
So
No, thank you for that. I'm excited for the future. So.
Cool.
I would like to thank you for getting Eric and Carlos on. I've been watching these for a number of weeks and being pretty quiet. I'm a retired engineer. Listening to you, Eric, saying retired. I'm a bit older than you in my retirement, but I've done photography sort of all my life. And your words were inspiring. Carlos's pictures are inspiring.
Thank you.
And John and the others, listening to your conversation and see what we've done has been inspiring. So thank you.
Good, good. We'll
And
be back here.
I chuckle. I'm an RIT grad, but I went to the school at the end of the quad and not the one on the side where guys carry slide rules. But so I'm
Yeah,
proud.
I was one of the photo slide rule guys.
Yeah, you were right. I think you were a year or two ahead of me, but yeah.
Maybe more.
Cool. Well, we'll be back Thursday. I don't have a guest scheduled for Thursday yet, but we'll just have our normal open conversations. And then next week I got Site Builder and Steve Krongard. So looking forward to all this. Thank you all for joining us. I'm going to stop the
guys.
recording.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Carlos, good luck with the career change
Thank
idea.
you. Much needed. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.